Hello out there, greetings mateys, and welcome aboard the VHS pirate ship. Be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Smash that button.
So you can see all the action, all the adventure, all the drama, and all the excitement here on the VHS pirate ship. So join the crew, hit subscribe. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the show. No, get the other shovel. No, the other shovel. No, that's a spoon. Oh man. Oh, watch out! Told him about that unicycle. Greetings, mates. It's me, Captain Adam, and welcome aboard me VHS pirate ship. It's the VHS pirate ship. Pirate ship! We're all very excited on the VHS pirate ship today because we're going on a treasure hunt. And there's nothing more exciting than a treasure hunt to a pirate. And today, we're examining treasure hunt movies with the Trek for Treasure Hunt tapes. So enjoy the show. Yarr! Ah, the good old-fashioned treasure hunt. You know, the concept of seeking buried treasure is always intriguing. And the concept is to venture out and possibly become rich beyond your wildest dreams. And usually it involves some kind of treasure map telling you where this buried treasure is. And burying treasure is kind of an odd thing if you think about it. I mean, squirrels do it, dogs do it, and pirates do it. It's kind of like a pirate savings account. Except it doesn't accrue any interest, because it's buried in the ground. And the things that dogs and squirrels bury, we wouldn't consider treasure, but it's treasure to them, so leave them alone. The purpose is, of course, to save something for later that only you know where it is, until someone gets their hands on a treasure map, and then all bets are off. It's anybody's game now, and the treasure belongs to who can find it first. And the idea of a treasure map was really made famous by the Robert Louis Stevenson novel Treasure Island, which was published in 1882, and pretty much became one of the most famous novels ever. Robert Louis Stevenson really did a good thing with this one. And you might not realize it, but this book did a lot for pirate imagery. What with the treasure map, and the term X marks the spot, and the peg-legged pirate, and the image of the pirate with a parrot on his shoulder, and that's all because of this book. Think about it. We don't even know for sure if pirates even had parrots on their shoulders. We just kind of go with it. In fact, now parrots are automatically associated with pirates, and not to mention there's a major restaurant chain named after one of the main characters, Long John Silver. Yeah, there really isn't any other fast food chain named after classic literary figures. This book was a smash hit, and continued to be a smash hit, and of course there had to be a film adaptation with Walt Disney's Treasure Island, which was released in theaters July 19th, 1950, and it would go on to be released on VHS numerous times, most notable being the 1981 and 1986 Walt Disney home video releases in the famous white clamshells. And this would be released again in 1992 in a regular cardboard sleeve, and then again in 1997 in a kid's clamshell. And the 1981 release does go for a lot of money, though I do think $100 is a little steep.
$100 fucking dollars? Fucking dollars? Fucking dollars?
It would be cool to have this in your collection, but not that cool. 100 smackaroos is a pretty steep price to pay to have something cool in your collection. And the releases in the 1990s go for around $8, and sometimes even cheaper than that. Like this person selling the 1992 version for not even $3. I've said it before and I'll say it again, why sell it for that? That doesn't even cover the cost of the packaging to ship it in. And once again, you're getting the red before you even get to the post office. Anyways, Treasure Island is a very important story. There were a variety of different remakes, including one from the Muppets that was released in theaters February 16th, 1996, and then released on VHS September 10th, 1996. And you know, your story is important if the Muppets do their own rendition of it. And yeah, you can find this pretty cheap today for around $5, but honestly, I wouldn't even bother with the mailing system. You can really just go into a thrift store and probably find one for 25 cents. As this is probably one of the more common VHSs you'll find on thrift store shelves, right alongside of Titanic and Jerry Maguire. Okay, so the concept of the treasure hunt film is just that. It's a movie that features a the treasure hunt as the main story. And Treasure Island made this concept very famous, to the point where it pretty much became its own movie genre. And today, we're going to examine some of the more modern renditions of the treasure hunt concept. And since this is a show hosted by a pirate, like myself, I'm going to find today's show very enjoyable, because pirates and buried treasure go together like traffic and weather. So break out your treasure maps, get out your little shovels, and get ready to surrender the booty for today's episode, The Trek for Treasure Hunt Tapes. It would seem that there will always be treasure hunt films, and there will always be modern renditions of this concept, the most notable being It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which was released in theaters November 7th, 1963. And not only is it a great example of a modern treasure hunt movie, but it's also a great comedy. The whole movie is about a bunch of people scrambling to find buried money, and the only hint that they get is that it's buried under a big W, which is akin to the X marks the spot from Treasure Island. It's a great classic comedy. If you haven't seen it, you really got to see this movie. And it's got a large cast too, including Jimmy Durante and Jonathan Winters. And the Jonathan Winters character, Lenny Pike, is probably the funniest part of this movie. You see, after one of the other characters leaves Lenny stranded, and he gets so mad about it that he spends the rest of the movie in pursuit of this guy. He then catches the guy at a gas station and then proceeds to completely destroy the place. It's a classic scene and it's hilarious. And this just is a good old-fashioned movie. I mean, it's just a great watch. It's very entertaining. The whole family can watch it. There's no obscenity in it. It's good. It's a good film. And it's a long movie too. The original cut was 210 minutes, the premiere cut was 192 minutes, the standard cut was 161 minutes, and then there was a restored cut, and that was 197 minutes, which was released on a double VHS set in 1992. Then they released the restored cut 2-tape set again in 1995, and CBS Home Video released the standard cut, which was a single tape, in 1985. And you can find any of these distributions today from $8 to $20. This is a great classic film, and though you typically don't think of comedies as being epic, but that's what this movie is. It's an epic comedy. And it's a modern rendition of the treasure hunt concept. And though they're not seeking doubloons or gold or jewels, they're seeking cold hard cash. But that's just a modern day treasure. But speaking of your traditional treasure, let's go back to Treasure Island for a second. Treasure Island was remade in 1972 featuring Orson Welles as Long John Silver. And I can't really tell if that's a good or a bad choice for the casting of that role. And oddly enough, that movie was never released in theaters in the United States. But the VHS sure was, and you can find it on DVD, but we don't really talk about DVDs on this show. Yeah, you can DVDs nuts. And I know, when we hear Treasure Island, we automatically think of the 1950 Walt Disney film adaptation, as it is the most famous one. But Treasure Island came to the big screen in 1934, and there's VHS of this too, and it was even released in the MGM Home Video book box, among other distributions, and look, it even got a beta. And there was also a 1990 made-for-television Treasure Island movie, which starred Charlton Heston, Christopher Lee, and a young Christian Bale. And this was released on VHS too. But let's switch back to It's a Mad, 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 Mad World for a second. As I had mentioned, this film has an extensive cast, which includes a cameo from the Three Stooges, though it is the version of the Three Stooges with Joe, and it's only about a split second, and you can tell these guys are just hanging on. These poor guys should not have been in this movie. Just for their sake, I mean, you really hate to see them like this, because more often than not, memories are better than reality. But it is what it is, and this film definitely tried to cram as many comedic superstars in it as it could, and this cast is a comedic powerhouse. You got Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Ethel Merman, Mickey Rooney, Buddy Hackett. I mean, this studio took a tremendous risk making this film, considering the budget was $9.4 million, and I'm guessing most of that went to the salaries of the cast members. But the star power paid off, because this movie made $60 million at the box office. But let's move our little treasure hunt into the 80s and talk about one of the more significant treasure hunt films, with Raiders of the Lost Ark. which was released in theaters June 12, 1981, and would prove to be another successful cash cow for George Lucas, as this comes in on the heels of the immensely successful Star Wars A New Hope from 1977, and its sequel, The Empire Strikes Back, in 1980, but I'm sure we all already know that, and Raiders of the Lost Ark would introduce us to Indiana Jones, professor, archaeologist, and treasure hunter. In this film, we find that Indiana Jones is searching for the Ark of the Covenant, which is a biblical treasure beyond measure. But there's a catch. The Nazis are looking for it too. Those zany Nazis, always after something mystical. And so eventually, both Indiana Jones and the Nazis find the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark is then opened, giving way to the famous face-melting scene, wherein the Nazis are then turned into strawberry sundaes. This film was immensely successful. It was made for a budget of $20 million, but took in $389 million at the box office. $389 million. $389 million. $389 million. And then there would be another Indiana Jones film with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which was released in theaters May 23rd, 1984, and then another Indiana Jones film with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which was released in theaters May 24th, 1989. So now Indiana Jones is a trilogy of movies, and so Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade are treasure hunting films, because in the Last Crusade they're searching for the Holy Grail, and once again Nazis are too. Told you about them Nazis. Always looking for something mystical. And critics have said that Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade are pretty much the same movie with some slight differences. But Temple of Doom sure as hell stands alone. You see, the Temple of Doom isn't really a treasure hunting film. And Indy gets caught up in helping a village to find their children who they fear have been kidnapped and forced into slavery by a death cult. And this film has some of the most gruesome scenes in it. It's almost a horror movie, like the scene with all the bugs. And when I say all the bugs, I really think that's all the bugs in the world. I mean, we are talking heebie-jeebies bonanza, and the infamous dinner scene, and of course the whole heart-ripping out thing. The Temple of Doom definitely stands out amongst this trilogy, and it's my favorite one. And so the Indiana Jones trilogy will become so popular that it actually gave way to a television show with The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which aired from March 4th, 1992 to July 24th, 1993. And there was another Indiana Jones film with 2008's Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But we're not going to talk about that because that was released after the fall of the VHS empire, and plus it sucks. And the VHS of the trilogy will be released numerous times. For example, Raiders of the Lost Ark would be released in 1984 as part of a Paramount Pictures Special Collector's Edition. And I have some of these special Paramount Home Video Collection editions. And by some, I mean one, and it's Teen Wolf. And Raiders and Temple of Doom would be released numerous times through the 80s, including this copy of Temple of Doom from 1989. And then eventually in the early 90s, the whole trilogy would be released in a box set. Not once, but twice. And the one actually contains a bonus video of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And that show enjoyed its own video collection as well. And finding all this today is pretty random, though it is easier to find the box sets as opposed to the individual tapes. And as usual, the prices range from $5 to $20, depending on who's selling. And there was even a VHS made of the making of special, in which there was also a Laserdisc for. And so the Indiana Jones series is probably the best known treasure hunt and adventure films out there. But the 80s would spawn another treasure hunt film, which would go on to be one of the more iconic films of the 80s with The Goonies, which was released in theaters June 7, 1985. And not only is it an iconic movie, it is also the quintessential treasure hunting film. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but in the movie, a group of kids are searching for the treasure of the nefarious pirate One-Eyed Willie in order to save their homes from demolition. No, not that demolition. Demolition from a rich dickhead who wants to buy the land. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, you can't have an 80s movie without a rich dickhead antagonist. And this movie is just truly a great movie. I mean, it really stands the test of time. There's action, there's adventure, and there's a lot of funny lines in this movie. Like, oh shit, what? And it's one of those movies where if you haven't seen it, I have to ask what planet you're from. It's like when people tell me they haven't seen Taxi Driver. It's like I can't even comprehend that. And I'm just like, man, you really got to get organized. And there are some similarities between this and the Temple of Doom. For one, it stars Jonathan K. Kwan, and forgive me if I butchered that name, who portrays Data in the Goonies, but also portrayed Short Round in the Temple of Doom. And the Temple of Doom was directed by Steven Spielberg, who was also the executive producer on the Goonies. Goonies. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What's up with the VHS for this movie? Well, it was released on VHS in 1986, and it was released in a normal cardboard sleeve, but 1986 was right around the time where Warner Brothers Home Video started phasing out their traditional clamshell boxes, and the Goonies was also released in one of these, but this is extremely rare nowadays. In fact, so is the 1986 cardboard sleeve distribution. They're both very rare, so trying to find one of these is like a treasure hunt in itself, and trying to find the Japanese version is actually easier, but it's not cheap. It would be released on VHS again in 1994, and again in 1997, and then again in the year 2000. And these 90s distributions are in kids' clamshells, so there's that. And if you go searching for Goonies VHS, these are probably the only ones you'll find, and they're pretty reasonably priced. Or if you got $300 just lying around, you can get this one signed by Richard Donner, who was the director of this movie. So why are the 1986 versions of this VHS so rare? Well, I can't say much for the cardboard sleeve version, but as far as the Warner Brothers Home Video clamshell is concerned, it's more than likely because they didn't make a lot of them. You see, given the high price points of VHS back in the day, they weren't really necessarily intended to be bought by the public, but rather they'd be sold to video rental stores. Now, that's not to say that Mr. Moneybags couldn't just go out and buy one, but they were mainly intended to be rented, given the fact that most people couldn't afford them. And so there probably weren't many of these Goonies VHS and the Warner Brothers Home Video clamshells in existence, and most of them have probably just since been destroyed or lost. And there's Laserdiscs of the Goonies as well. In fact, there's two different distributions, and these are easier to find than the 1986 VHS. You know, sometimes I wonder if I should start collecting Laserdiscs, but then again, I think it would make me even crazier than I am now. Captain Adam's Laserdisc pirate ship? I don't know, could work. And so, The Goonies is in fact the quintessential treasure hunting film. And there's another treasure hunting film that not too many people know about, including myself, with The Real McCall, which was released in theaters September 24th, 1998, and will be released on VHS in the year 2000. And it's a story about this McCall that knows where this pirate treasure is buried. And look at him, he's got a little hat on. It's a lighthearted family adventure, and John Goodman is the voice of Mac the McCall. And this VHS is easy to find and affordable, and I have this one. And so, will I be talking about King Solomon's Mines on this show? No, and while it is an adventure movie, it's not really a treasure hunt movie, it's more of a rescue mission movie. But what the hell, since we're all up, let's talk about it a little bit. King Solomon's Mines is an 1885 novel by Sir H. Rider Haggard, and it's enjoyed numerous film adaptations, the most famous being the 1950 version and the 1985 version with a close second. And the 1985 version starred Sharon Stone, and 1985 was quite the busy year for great movies, and so this one just kind of got forgotten about through time. But that doesn't mean the VHS of this isn't interesting. And the first VHS of this film would be released in a book box, and then it would be released in 1993 in a normal cardboard sleeve as part of the MGM Movie Time collection. And the 1937 version of the movie would be released on VHS as well, as would the more famous 1950 version. Then of course there was the 1979 King Solomon's Treasure, which is like if you ate all the other King Solomon's movies and then took a dump, that's what you'd have. But there is a VHS of that as well, and the 1985 version in the book box is actually pretty hard to find. And so again, it's like a treasure hunt all in itself, and the challenge is part of the fun. And treasure hunting stories are an important part of American folklore, as well as an important part of the world's folklore, because everybody likes a good adventure, and everybody likes getting rich. And so that wraps up today's show, and this is kind of like a season finale. Yep, I gotta take the old VHS pirate ship back into harbor to scrape the barnacles off and clean the heads, stuff like that. But we will return to the high seas of VHS collecting soon enough. And so I hope you enjoyed today's show, and be sure to hit subscribe. And I'll see you next time on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship.